I have the honor of working with Brandon on the advisory board of a group called the Solutions Project. Brandon and I first met back in February 2014 when I think Brandon came to his very first NASCAR race to cheer me on at Daytona International Speedway when I was driving my Go 100% Renewable race car. Brandon is the former Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Staff serving under Secretary Chu at the U.S. Department of Energy. Brandon has provided leadership and counsel to the White House and cabinet secretaries during high-profile challenges, including the Fukushima nuclear accident in Japan, the Gulf oil spill, and Hurricane Sandy. He is currently co-founder and partner at Boundary Stone Partners, and serves on the advisory boards of many organizations, including GE Energy, DuSable Capital Management, California Global Innovation Exchange, and the Solutions Project. Brandon is an incredible leader in the clean energy movement, and I'm so proud to call him my friend. Please join me in welcoming Brandon for his keynote address titled Clean Energy, a $3 trillion Revolution.
It's so awesome to be introduced by somebody that you love and respect and admire so much. Leilani is one of my best friends, and I love working with her, and she is such an inspiration. I don't think we have a better messenger on this issue. So thanks, Leilani, and thanks, Chip, for bringing me out here today. So as Leilani mentioned, I spent most of my time working on politics and policy. And when I was at the DOE, I saw this incredible technology development happening, but I thought, how are we going to finance this? We really need more attention on that part of the issue. So when I was there, we built out a finance team led by Richard Kaufman, who many of you know is the New York energy czar. And this is an area that I really started to focus on. And so after I left the DOE, I started my firm, and we're working with all sorts of investors, from high net worth individuals to venture capitalists to private equity to institutional investors, trying to figure out how to deploy more capital into renewables and energy efficiency. Because I think the fate of the world will turn on how capital is deployed over the next couple of decades. And so I'm really trying to play a role in solving that problem. Ultimately, my dream in the next 10 years is to stand up like a green BlackRock that does only clean energy investing and has that sort of size and pulls all those pieces together. So because I'm working with many of these investors, I thought today we could talk a little bit about how investors are thinking about this and what the opportunities are. So if we look at some of the basic numbers to start, there's some good news and bad news. The good news is last year was a record year for clean energy investment across the world, $329 billion. The bad news is we need a lot more. The IEA says that we need $1 trillion a year in investment to meet the 2 degrees Celsius goal. So we have a ways to get there. The good news is the tide seems to be turning. There are the divest revest movement, which Tom Van Dyke is here somewhere, is leading, is up to $3.4 trillion. You have many of these pension funds like CalPERS. You have the second largest sovereign wealth fund in Norway has divested from fossil fuels. So there's some good news there. In the earlier stage, in the VC market, there was $58.8 billion invested last year, but not much of that went to clean tech, and very little of that went to early stage investing. So that's still a bit of a challenge. So today, I thought we'd talk about 3 sort of key markets. There are many more, but we'll focus on 3 today: utility business model disruption, mobility, and smart cities. On the utility business model disruption, I see a couple different areas that we're really excited about. First, on the smart home, this is super cool. So people have been talking about putting solar panels on your house with batteries. What will ultimately happen is that will be combined with advanced inverters You'll have a Nest thermostat in your house that will be a control panel for the entire home, and your appliances will have sensors on them. And this will all be talking to each other. And what will happen then is each of those homes will be aggregated into what will be called virtual power plants. And those virtual power plants are going to be selling grid services into the grid. So each homeowner can almost function as their own utility. And this is happening faster than people think, especially with SolarCity and Tesla potentially merging, as was talked about earlier today. On community solar, this is another really exciting area because 80% of homes cannot get solar. Maybe it's because they live in a big building, or you're a renter, or you don't have the right shade. I live in Washington, D.C. I live in a big building. I can't get solar, but there are many companies now and developers who are very active in this, where you can invest in a solar panel that's not on your roof, and you can have, with no money down, have your bill go down immediately and generate those savings, which is really a terrific thing because some people also don't like the home construction project of a solar panel on their roof. So this will allow for much more solar to be deployed, and this is a fast-moving space. Microgrids is another area where we are moving to this decentralized energy infrastructure. Companies like Advanced Microgrid Solutions are doing some really innovative things there. And we also see in off-grid applications where people can go into Africa and India and they don't have grid access and drop in solar panels with batteries and wire the entire village and get paid up front through the cell phone. So it de-risks the project. People can send their money through their cell phone to the developer and then generate the electricity from there. So these are exciting areas. And mobility, EVs and autonomous vehicles are taking off. As Kevin mentioned earlier in his speech, the DOE funded Tesla, and now there's many other companies like Faraday Futures getting going. I visited their manufacturing or their headquarters in Los Angeles, saw the car. This is really moving fast. The car has like 7 screens in it. What they're really doing, the owner of Faraday Future is the guy who runs Netflix in China, where they have 300 million subscribers. They're just trying to stream content to you. So they're using a vehicle as literally a vehicle to stream content. So this is happening fast. The car, I've sat in it, and this is going to create all kinds of new ways to be efficient in cities and reduce traffic and congestion and whatnot. People may not even be buying cars in 10 years. You may just be providing mobility as a service. So this is very cool stuff. On smart cities, this is another area where the government is sort of getting it off the ground and the private sector is really moving it forward. So tomorrow, the Department of Transportation is going to announce a $40 million grant to a city where they're going to do an entire smart city deployment. And what's happening here is, like, intelligent lighting is sort of the base of this. All of these street lights are going to get swapped out for LED lights because the payback period is so quick. And so these new LED street lights have sensors in them, and that can generate all sorts of data. And that data can live on a platform where app developers can create apps off of that data. And so the apps can be something like, if you're a solar developer, to know in real time when clouds are moving across the sun or not, that's really valuable. It can make solar even more efficient. It can also do pollution monitoring with all these sensors. So in China, you could know pollution in real time where it's happening. So we've talked today about how pollution can't be seen, but what if you have an app on your phone with Google Maps where you know where pollution is happening in real time, right? So this is a very exciting area that we see tremendous market potential in. So what are the opportunities? In the earlier stage with VC, we see you don't have to take technology risk anymore. A lot of the technologies have been proven: wind, solar, lithium-ion batteries, EVs. So you can invest in business model innovation around those winning technologies. So you can do data analytics. There's a great company called PowerScout. What they're doing is micro-targeting consumers and reducing customer acquisition costs for solar, much in the same way that the Obama campaign micro-targeted voters. We knew everything about you. And so some of these companies they're figuring out how to sell solar better to you. Maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer and you're upgrading your home. they know that, and they can pitch, hey, you can increase the value of your home by going solar, right? So they can tailor that message directly to you, which will help solar sales. Spark Fund is financing energy efficiency and doing it as a service. This is a financial innovation where it's much easier to get a sales transaction done if it's done as a service and it's off balance sheet. Mosaic is doing financing home loans for solar. That's another financial innovation. Utility API is getting data from consumer or commercial and industrial customers that can help sell solar and battery storage to those commercial and industrial customers. So this is all very, very cool stuff. On the later stage, we see green bonds. I know Solar City and Sunrun have done securitization, so late stage investors can come in and buy those bonds. There is big projects. These are stable cash flows from low risk technologies that we see investors getting more interested in. And so that is the opportunities that we see on the late stage front. But here's what I think. In order to make this really happen, we need new financing models because the old ways, there are challenges, and we need some new ways to do this. So we're seeing this happen. At the early stage, Kevin mentioned earlier, mission innovation, governments coming together, doubling their research and development budgets. The Breakthrough Energy Coalition, high net worth individuals coming in and solving these valleys of deaths on the technology front where they can't get investment, and because people need returns on a 3 to 5 year time frame. If you can be flexible and patient with that capital, that can allow the technology to mature. So we're seeing organizations stood up to deal with this. Cyclotron Road, really interesting incubator that's set up at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. On venture capital, we're seeing Prime Coalition. They're bringing foundations and endowments to invest into this space where they can get program-related investment credits. Vision Ridge is combining debt with equity in unique ways to solve some of the challenges with VC. At the later stage, Aligned Intermediary and Clean Capital are streamlined platforms to buy projects, solar and wind projects. So this is very innovative in the way that they're bringing financing to the table. Okay, what policy challenges, what challenges do we need to overcome this? I see policy as one of the main challenges. There's a couple of different things that we need to solve for. One is fossil fuel subsidies. Second is antiquated regulatory structures. And the third is uncertainty. So right now, the G20 countries are subsidizing fossil fuels with $450 billion a year. This is crazy. We're literally subsidizing the problem that we're trying to solve. So that is helping make fossil fuels cheaper. So this is a problem that I think needs to be addressed. On the antiquated regulatory structures, we're seeing with technology development, they're bumping up against incumbent structures that are not prepared to deal with it. You think Uber with taxi cabs and Airbnb with hotels. It's the same thing with solar and battery storage and wind. What you have is 50 different regulatory structures in this country, and they're not really prepared to deal with distributed resources. Utilities are not incentivized to make the grid more efficient. They're paid to build things, and so they're not paid to use resources more efficiently. So we need to figure this out because this is really a battle that's happening that's having negative consequences. I spent a lot of time in Nevada in February, and the residential solar industry was kicked out of the state. They couldn't do business anymore because the Public Utilities Commission changed the rules. So what we need to do is figure out how to value these services that we're talking about into the grid so that we can monetize this in a way that is adaptive to the technologies of today. And then finally, skip here. Uncertainty. So this is the political question. When I had Kevin's job before, I had to be a lot more measured in my remarks. Now that I'm no longer in the government, I can just tell you exactly what I think. Nobody here needs to be convinced about Hillary versus Trump, but here's what I'll tell you. Look at the difference between what they've said on these on this issue, right? I mean, Trump would unwind the Paris Agreement, which would be devastating. He would unwind the Clean Power Plan, devastating. So what I think needs to happen is not only do we need to win, but it needs to be a reckoning. We need to show, to come out have our voices heard, and hopefully that will send a message to the Republican Party that obstructionism doesn't work, and they'll come back to the table and we can have a healthy two-party system where we can govern together. So that's what I'm really hoping for in the election. But this uncertainty is something that is really destructive to the investor climate, because this can go one of two ways, and a lot of people will sit on the sidelines to figure out which way is this going to go. All right, any questions? We have 1 minute left. Yes, sir.
So, to solve this problem, this multi-trillion-dollar problem, do you think venture capital, private equity, and accredited investors are enough, or do you see the solution having to involve crowdfunding and non-accredited investors?
I love crowdfunding. The change that the Obama made in the Jobs Act that has allowed this to happen, I think is terrific. And I'm very excited about it. It's happening slowly, though. Some of the companies that we highlighted in the slides, Mosaic, Spark Fund, they started off as crowdfunded companies, and it was too clunky. They ended up going to traditional banks to get their debt because it was cheaper and easier to use. Solar City figured out how to sell a bond to non-accredited investors. Good yield, 5-6%, if you get a 10, 15-year solar bond. This is a very good product. They've had a hard time selling it. So I think in the future, this is going to play a big role, but it's not maturing as quickly as we need yet. I got the cutoff sign. So I'm around all day and tomorrow. Happy to talk more. Happy to share some stories that Leilani mentioned about Fukushima and Hurricane Sandy, Solyndra, all the interesting stuff I was involved in at the DOE. So please don't hesitate to come up and say hi. Thank you so much.